Hey guys, I'm Hagan K, and just want to show off some stuff I've watched throughout the few months here in 2023, from January through May. And we're going to start off here with January the 12th. I watched a movie called Dead Heat, and got a 4K here from Vinegar Syndrome. I thought this was an okay movie. I won't go in depth too much about each movie, but I thought it was an okay movie. It had Treat Williams in it, rest in peace, passed away recently in a accident. But I thought it was an okay movie for what it was. Kind of like a buddy cop type movie, with a little bit of horror implemented and a little bit of meshing of some genres. But I enjoyed it for the most part for what it was. I gave it I believe a 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd. So Dead Heat. And up next we've got Inside, which I don't have a physical release of that. But Inside was a 2007 film. It is a horror film directed by Julian Murray and Alexandre Bastilio, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But thought it was an okay movie. My friend and I watched it. He recommended it to me. But I thought it was okay for what it was. Had some very weird scenes throughout the movie, but thought it was an okay watch for the most part. And I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Up next, going to be a documentary that I watched on the 21st of January called The Pez Outlaw, which was a documentary about a guy that collects Pez dispensers and how he made a living doing it. And it was a pretty good documentary. It talked about his origin in terms of like collecting and how he was able to have a market come about with Pez collecting and the dispensers back in the 80s and 90s. And overall, I thought it was an okay documentary. I watched it on Netflix and I enjoyed what was told throughout it. So pretty good documentary. I gave it 4 stars out of 5. Up next, gonna have another physical release here from a partner label with Vinegar Syndrome. Gonna be Gunpowder and Sky, I believe. Yes, but it's a movie called Villains, and this movie came out in 2019. It's got Mecca Monroe and Bill Skarsgård, I believe. But I thought it was a good little movie. It kind of reminded me of like a Bonnie and Clyde-esque type of movie involving 2 crooks who are on the run, and they end up getting trapped in this house with even worse people than they could ever imagine. And I thought it was a pretty good movie, a good little thriller. Didn't take itself too seriously, but did enjoy it for what it was, and had a little bit of romance in there between Skarsgård and Monroe's characters. But thought it was a good overall movie with a lot of romance and a lot of comedy and a lot of, not horror, but I guess thriller in a way. So it did a good job of meshing some genres together. And I gave that a 4 stars out of 5. And then up next, I watched a movie with my friend on January 30th called Infinity Pool. Didn't really enjoy this movie that much. It was okay. It was a Cronenberg film, his son that is, and I enjoyed the cast and the performances, and I knew it would be kind of an oddball type movie, but there were just some things that were kind of left unsaid and a lot of plot holes, and I just didn't really enjoy it. But I may give it a second watch one day and see if my opinion changes. But for Infinity Pool, I gave it 2.5 stars out of 5. Now into February. I'm going to start off the month of February with a movie called Southpaw, which I watched on the 4th of February. It's a movie starring Jake Gyllenhaal, boxing movie, and pretty good movie. I mean, it's very similar to the Rocky movies, any movies involving fighting. So it's a pretty solid movie for what it was. Kind of like a underdog story in a way, but in this sense, he kind of starts out on the top, and then has some things happen that leads to him being on the rock bottom, and so he has to make his way up, and he has to rebuild a relationship with his daughter. And I thought it was an okay movie for what it was. So for Southpaw, I gave it a 3 stars out of 5. Up next, I watched a movie called Plane, starring Gerard Butler, which I watched on the 11th of February, and I thought it was a good action movie. It had a lot of good combat scenes, a lot of good scenes involving weapons and action, and I thought the premise was pretty good for what it was, and I think it landed pretty well for an action movie with Gerard Butler, which was what he's known for. But I really enjoyed it, so I gave Plane 3.5 stars out of 5. Now up next, another physical release that I have in my collection is going to be the Amityville Horror, which was a 1979 film, I believe, starring Margot Kidder and James Brolin. And I really enjoyed this movie. I thought, for as old as it was, I thought the horror in it was pretty good. And I enjoyed the character arcs between James Brolin's character and Margot Kidder's character as a couple. And overall, I thought it was a good movie. And this 4K from Vinegar Syndrome it's pretty nice. I enjoyed it, and I want to check out the special features on it. But I love the back of this with the crucifix, and just a good horror movie overall. I really recommend it to anybody out there that loves horror. It's good for its time. So I gave the Amityville Horror a 4 stars out of 5. So recommend this one. Now, up next, on the 14th of February, I watched Superbad, the comedy with Jonah Hill, and I liked it. It was good for what it was. If I'd have grown up and been in high school during that time period, I probably would have liked it a lot more, but I thought it was a good comedy movie. I gave it, let's see here, I gave it 4 stars out of 5, so that's Superbad. Now, on the 18th of February, I watched a movie called The Last Boy Scout with Bruce Willis and one of the Wayans brothers. It was an okay movie. It's kind of like an action movie in a way, and I thought it was okay for what it was. Didn't really pay attention to a lot of it while I was watching it because it was kind of in and out, and mainly watching it as kind of like a background type movie. But for what I did pay attention to, I thought it was an okay movie. I gave it a 3 stars out of 5. Now, up next, on the 22nd of February, I watched a movie called Eden Lake, an Australian movie that has Michael Fassbender in it, along with some other notable cast members. But I really enjoyed this one. This one was very intense, a good thriller, and surprised me in terms of what happens at the end of it. And I won't go into details and spoilers, but very different from what I expected to happen with a movie like that. But really enjoyed Eden Lake, and I gave it a 4 stars out of 5. Up next, on the 25th, I went to the theaters to see Cocaine Bear, which was a really funny movie. I didn't care a lot for the characters in it, but the whole aspect involving the bear was the best parts of it. But overall, a decent flick, and gave it a 3 stars out of 5. Up next, with another physical release, I watched TCM 2, another release I got from Vinegar Syndrome. And I don't have a whole lot of Vinegar Syndrome in my collection, but what I do have is what I've mainly showed in this video here. But an awesome release, great packaging, and awesome artwork with Dennis Hopper on the back. Love him as an actor. So, pretty good release from Vinegar Syndrome. The movie itself, I enjoyed parts of it. I liked the first act a lot with the disc jockey, Stretch, the disc jockey. I liked her character for the most part, and I liked the first act. But as the movie progressed, it just kind of became redundant a little bit, and I couldn't really follow it as well. And I think it was kind of scattered everywhere, and the pacing wasn't that great. And I didn't like Leatherface in this movie, and I know Toby Hooper is going for more of a comedy, I believe, which I do like that aspect of it in parts, not all the way in certain areas, or not overall, but in certain parts of this movie, I do like the comedy aspect they did with it. And I'll show you the inside of this, which a lot of people have posted about this, but with the kind of like the Breakfast Club type poster with them portraying it, and it didn't take itself seriously, which is very the opposite of the first one, as we all know. But didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would, and do want to check out the special features on this, because Vinegar Syndrome does great special features on a lot of their releases. So want to dig into this more and watch a lot of the features and just see how they made this movie. And for TCM 2, I gave it a 2 stars out of 5. Now, up next, we'll start March of 2023. And the first movie in March that I watched, this is kind of when I started going on a stretch of watching a lot of Schwarzenegger movies along with Stallone movies. And start off March, I watched Commando with Arnold, and I watched that on the 6th of March. And a good action movie, very good one-liners by Arnold and his character in that movie, and I enjoyed it for what it was. A good action movie, and I gave it a 3.5 stars out of 5. So, solid flick with Commando. Now, up next, I watched Predator on the 11th of March, again with Arnold in it, and I really enjoyed Predator. A good guys movie, just a good watch, and with Carl Weathers, I think Shane Black's in that movie, I believe, too, and some other cast members, but those are the main ones I can recollect. But enjoyed Predator for what it was. I liked the ending of it, and just a good creature watch. And for that time, it was a big thing, I know, because my dad watched it during that time period in the 80s. But overall, I enjoyed Predator and gave it a 4 stars out of 5. Up next, on the 11th as well, I watched Scream 6 in theaters, and can really say that it disappointed me in a way. I had read a lot and heard a lot about how they're trying to do some different things within the movie. I won't go into details because I know some people maybe haven't seen it yet, which it's been out for a couple of months, but it's just the same old with Scream, which I don't mind Scream, but it gets to a point where it does get stale, or it can, that is. But didn't mind the movie, thought it was okay. Third act, didn't really care for, but overall, a decent flick. I wasn't bored by it, and gave it a 3 stars out of 5. Now, the next movie, on the 13th of March, I watched The Terminator with Arnold Schwarzenegger, the 1984 classic from James Cameron, and really enjoyed this movie. Enjoyed the soundtrack by Brad Fiedel, and really enjoyed Terminator. I enjoyed the whole movie, a great sci-fi classic, and yeah, Terminator. And I gave that 4 stars out of 5. Same day, what's better than Terminator for a lot of people? You know, that is T2, Judgment Day. Watched Terminator 2, Judgment Day. Enjoyed it. Enjoyed the villain in that movie, Robert Patrick. Great villain role as the T-1000. More of an action movie than the first one. You know, with the first Terminator, it's more kind of a slasher. It's got more of a kind of horror aspect to it. So very different from the first one, but that's a good action movie. And it still had some horror aspects in it, but overall, really enjoyed it. Thought it was a good movie, and yeah, T2 Judgment Day. I gave it 4 stars out of 5. Up next, watched the first John Wick movie in the John Wick franchise, and really enjoyed it. Great action movie, great set pieces, just a great overall movie in terms of an action movie. The story was great, involving John Wick, the character himself, and yeah, thought it was a good movie. Gave it a 4 stars out of 5. And next, on the 21st, watched John Wick Chapter 2, another just great movie, action movie overall. I enjoyed where they took it direction-wise, and I enjoyed it. And next, with John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, same thing here. I mean, they're all pretty consistent throughout the franchise. And of course, with the 4th one coming out this year, I was watching them up until Chapter 4. But with John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, enjoyed it for what it was, and I enjoyed the ending of it. And yeah, so gave that one 4 stars as well. Now, at the end of the month, 31st, I went and watched John Wick Chapter 4, and watched it in the theaters, and I enjoyed it. It was long, but a good action movie. Just kept amping up the action with each and every movie throughout the franchise, and I enjoyed it for what it was. And I do have a physical release of it, which John Wick, they put out tons of releases of these movies, but the only release I have right now is the Walmart exclusive Steelbook, and I thought this Steelbook was a lot better than the 4K Steelbook, which it sucks because this is only a Blu-ray and a DVD, but I mean, I couldn't turn this down. I mean, you look at it here, comes out, I mean, the artwork, that being the front there, and then the back being that. I mean, a great Steelbook. Overall, Lionsgate, they do a great job with their physical releases. And yeah, I had to pick this up. I thought it was a great great steelbook. And Walmart, they've been killing it lately. And with this being exclusive, I had to pick it up because who knows when some of these things run out of stock. So John Wick Chapter 4, great movie. I enjoyed it and gave it a 4 stars out of 5 on Letterboxd. Now up next, that will conclude it for the month of March. Now with April 2023, I started off with a movie called Judgment Night, which is a movie from the 90s, and I bought this. This is a Warner Archive title, and picked this up in a sale a couple of months back. It stars Emilio Estevez, Cuba Gooding Jr., and Dennis Leary, along with Stephen Dorff, I believe. And this movie was okay. It wasn't that great for me. I liked the premise of it, but I didn't think it delivered quite well. I won't go too much into detail, but didn't really care for the last 2 acts. Just did not like the direction they went. I didn't like what some of these characters were doing in terms of like their portrayals of what they were in the movie. Just kind of didn't really enjoy the last 2 acts, and that kind of did it for me. So gave this 2 stars out of 5 for Judgment Night. I do recommend you watch it, but I don't know, just didn't really enjoy it like I thought I would. Now, up next, I watched a John Carpenter classic called They Live on the 6th as well. And I liked They Live. It was a good movie, good little commentary type movie. And I enjoyed the plot behind it. Pretty good original movie. It kind of felt like, gave it a 3.5 stars out of 5. Yeah, 3.5 stars out of 5 for They Live. Up next, I watched a movie called Air that released this year in theaters, and enjoyed it for the most part. It was a kind of a story involving the beginning of Michael Jordan's deal with Nike, and thought it was good for what it was. A good little story behind the scenes of what came to be in terms of Michael Jordan's relationship with Nike. Thought the performances were great throughout the movie. Matt Damon's character, great performance by him. Jason Bateman, Ben Affleck, which Ben Affleck directed this movie. I enjoyed the movie, and I gave it a 4 stars out of 5 for Air. Also on the 6th, I watched The Autopsy of Jane Doe, which was a movie with Emil Hirsch in it, I believe. Yeah, Emil Hirsch. And I thought it was an okay movie for a horror movie. I liked the premise being that him and his father were morticians. Good. They perform autopsies, of course. Part of the name of the movie. But I thought it was good for what it was. Wasn't amazing, but I enjoyed it. It was a good movie. So gave that 3 stars out of 5. Up next, I get into some Stallone action here, which we talked about Arnold a couple minutes ago. But got into some Stallone action here, and for the first time, watched at least the first 5, that is, but the Rocky movies. So on the 9th, I watched the first Rocky movie, which I enjoyed. Gave that 4 stars out of 5. Rocky 2, I really loved. Gave that 5 stars out of 5. Just thought it was a great movie. Enjoyed the rematch between Rocky and Apollo. Just overall great sports movie, great boxing movie, and it's a great movie that anybody could watch. And then up next, on the 14th, I watched Rocky 3, which I also gave 5 stars out of 5. Just enjoyed having a new, I guess you could say, villain for the movie, a new opponent for Rocky with Clubber Lang. Really enjoyed that. It was good to see a different opponent for Rocky from what you saw in the first 2 movies, which you needed that. I'm glad they did it that way, because you needed to have that relationship between Apollo and Rocky grow. And with this movie, Apollo and Rocky, they become allies in a way, and Rocky has to really face some challenges for the first time that he's faced with since the first Rocky movie. And with this opponent, Clubber Lang has nothing to lose, and just a great movie with Rocky. Yeah, gave that 5 stars out of 5 for Rocky 3. And then on the 15th, I watched Rocky 4, which I like Rocky 4. It's a very kind of energizing movie. Feels almost like a music video in a way, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Dolph Lundgren's character. I didn't enjoy it as much as the first 3, but still liked it. and gave it a 3.5 stars out of 5. Now up next, a great Tom Cruise movie that I highly recommend you watch is Born on the 4th of July, which came out, I believe, in 1989, directed by Oliver Stone. Really enjoyed this movie. It involves a Vietnam War veteran and his struggles and his life after the war and what he has to go through. And I really thought Tom Cruise gave an amazing performance. Should have won an Oscar for it, in my opinion. But really enjoyed this movie, and I highly recommend it for anybody. I hope this gets a 4K soon, because I would love to pick this up on physical media. But yeah, Born on the 4th of July, 5 out of 5 for me on Letterboxd. Up next, on the 19th of April, I watched Megan, which is a new movie that came out. May have been this year, earlier this year. Can't remember exactly when it came out, but watched it on, I believe, Amazon. It was on a streaming service I watched it on, but I enjoyed it for what it was. Kind of reminded me of the Child's Play type movies. Had that type of same feel to it, and just more like with advanced technology, kind of like what they did with the Child's Play back a couple years ago. But enjoyed it for what it was, and gave it 3 stars out of 5 for Megan. Up next, on the 19th as well, I watched The Evil Dead, or not The Evil Dead, but just Evil Dead, which came out in 2013, directed by Fede Alvarez, and really enjoyed this movie. In fact, I have a copy here, and haven't opened it yet, but got this from Scream Factory in a sale, and it only has the 4K in it, but I mean, I had to pick this up. I really enjoyed this movie. A great horror movie, great practical effects, and I love the characters. I love Mia here, the main girl within the movie. Thought she gave an amazing performance, the actress playing her. And yeah, great Evil Dead movie in the franchise, and I really enjoyed it. Gave it a 4 stars out of 5 on Letterboxd. I'm glad I picked this up from Scream Factory. Got it for a good deal. So, Evil Dead 2013. Up next, I watched a movie in the theaters called The Covenant, which had Jake Gyllenhaal in it, starring in the lead role, and a good military movie. And I liked his performance, Jake Gyllenhaal's that is. I really like him as an actor, and I enjoy a lot of his movies. And if you're into military movies, really recommend this one. Great action sequences, great combat, and a good story involving 2 soldiers that have to come together and survive, basically. Help each other out. One helps the other, and the other repays the favor. Just enjoyed it for what it was. Great movie. The Covenant. Gave it a 4 stars out of 5. Now, up next, we've got... Oh yeah, not done with Rocky yet. On the 21st of April, I watched Rocky 5, which came out in the 90s. And Rocky 5, I did not like. I liked some aspects of it, but did not enjoy the fight at the end. It being in the street, I know why. I can tell why they were trying to do something different, but I would have rather seen Rocky fight Tommy Gunn in an actual ring. I enjoyed parts of it, but not my favorite Rocky of the franchise. And gave Rocky 5 a 2.5 stars out of 5. Up next, I went to the theaters on the 22nd of April, and I watched Evil Dead Rise, which was a newer movie that came out this year, as many have already seen if you're a huge fan of the Evil Dead franchise. And I enjoyed this. I like the new aspect of it being in an apartment complex. I enjoyed that. It was something different from being a cabin in the woods, and I enjoyed it. It was not amazing, but really enjoyed it. Enjoyed some of the performances in the movie, and that open title card, as anybody had seen it, probably one of the best title cards for a movie I've seen in a while, and especially for the Evil Dead franchise. But really enjoyed it, and didn't love it, but I enjoyed it. So gave Evil Dead Rise a 3.5 stars out of 5. And one thing I wanted to notice that people talked about, because I know the physical release just came out recently, no special features. I know it may have originally been scheduled to be released on streaming, but I just thought that was kind of odd that they wouldn't have any special features for it and then just release it. I was curious why they did that, and I don't know, maybe they'll have another release soon that has more features on it, but I didn't really get why they did that, but oh well. But yeah, Evil Dead Rise, 3.5 stars out of 5 is what I give it. Now up next, watched a movie on the 24th of April called Valkyrie, a movie with Tom Cruise starring in the lead role. Thought it was a good movie. Did not think it was very accurate in some parts, mainly being that all the actors, because they were playing as German soldiers and talking in English, you know, I know most of the actors that were in the movie primarily probably spoke English, but just thought it was kind of weird seeing a lot of the actors only speak English, especially if they're German soldiers. I enjoyed like the telling of the story, and I enjoyed the story itself. I did enjoy Tom Cruise's performance, and I thought it was a good movie overall. So I gave Valkyrie a 3.5 stars out of 5. Up next, some more Stallone action, as I watched Rambo First Blood Part 2, and really liked the movie. I've seen First Blood. I think First Blood's amazing, and gave First Blood Part 2 a 3.5 stars out of 5. Up next, on the 25th of April, I watched a lot of movies this month, but watched Predator 2, which came out, I think, in 1990, I believe, early 90s. I know it's got, I'm not sure the exact year, but no, it's, I think, early 90s. It's got Danny Glover, Bill Paxton, and I enjoyed the movie. Wasn't anything compared to the first one, but thought the premise being in the city was neat, so enjoyed it for what they did differently, but nothing spectacular, and so gave Predator 2 a 3 stars out of 5. Up next, watched Rambo 3 and enjoyed it for what it was. Again, just a solid action movie. I enjoyed the first, like the beginning of this movie with Rambo fighting, stick fighting. I enjoyed the whole sequence, thought that was very cinematic. Just enjoyed the atmosphere that provided within those first few minutes. And after that, just a normal action movie, really. It involved kind of like a Rambo saving his mentor, and gave Rambo 3 a 3 stars out of 5. Another Stallone movie, I watched Cobra on the 27th of April. Really liked Cobra. I enjoyed it being kind of different from what Stallone has done that I've watched, and I thought it was basically a group of people going around killing innocent people, and Stallone's character trying to, being a cop that is, and trying to do the dirty work and trying to clean up the crime within the city. It kind of reminded me a lot of the Dirty Harry movies with Clint Eastwood, but enjoyed the art style within this movie. I enjoyed just the way they told it, and thought it was pretty original, and I love that first sequence in the grocery store. But gave Cobra a 3.5 stars out of 5. Up next, in the month of April, I watched Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and really enjoyed Total Recall. Watched it on the 30th of April. I enjoyed the sci-fi action of it. It was Arnold being Arnold. The one-liners, just the Paul Verhoeven did with Total Recall, and I picked it up on physical recently. I picked it up at Best Buy for about $13, which I thought was a pretty good deal, but picked up the 4K of it, and haven't opened this yet, but I know they did a remake of this. Haven't seen the remake, but the 90s version, really enjoyed it, and I recommend giving it a watch. So Total Recall, gave it 4 stars out of 5. Now, up next, we'll start May here. On May the 1st, I watched Creep, which I really enjoyed. A great found footage type horror movie. Just enjoyed the performance from Mark Duplass, I believe. It was very eerie, and just it was a good overall found footage movie. Gave it a 4 stars out of 5 for Creep. And same day I watched Creep 2. Watched both of these on Netflix. Did not enjoy Creep 2 as much as I enjoyed the first one, but thought it was okay. But didn't enjoy it quite as well as the first one. So gave that 2.5 stars out of 5. Up next, on the 2nd of May, I watched not the original The Thing, but watched the 2011 The Thing, which being the prequel. I actually enjoyed this movie. I know a lot of people don't really like it. Yeah, the CGI is not the greatest. It's not. Really would have enjoyed if they'd done practical instead of CGI, but for it being a prequel, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the ending of it, leading to what happens in the original one. So I thought The Thing 2011 was good for what it was. Thought it good performances and everything. So gave that a 3.5 stars out of 5. Up next, I watched another found footage horror movie called Hell House LLC, which watched this I think through Amazon, and I enjoyed it. It was good. It wasn't perfect by no means, but it had some really creepy parts within the movie. So gave Hell House LLC a 3 stars out of 5. Up next on the 4th, watched The Ritual, a movie on Netflix about a group of friends who make a pact to go on this hiking trip and dedicate it to one of their friends who lost their life tragically. Thought it was a very interesting horror movie, and also that folk horror type movie as well, or that type of genre with what we've seen recently with some movies. But thought it was okay for what it was. But gave The Ritual 3 stars out of 5. Up next, I watched The Firm with Tom Cruise. I watched that on the 5th of May, and a good drama, a good thriller. And I know it was based off of a book. I like Gene Hackman's performance, I like Tom Cruise's performance, and an overall great job by the cast. So I gave The Firm 3.5 stars out of 5. Up next, on the 6th of May, another Stallone flick, watched Cliffhanger. And I know this recently got a 4K steelbook, which I look to be picking up. Just kind of waiting to see if it'll drop in price a little bit. But watched this on Netflix. Really enjoyed Cliffhanger. Great action movie, great performances. Great performance by John Lithgow as the villain. Really like him as an actor. But I recommend Cliffhanger if you like action movies. Anything with Stallone, I enjoy Cliffhanger. One of his best. Gave that 4 stars out of 5. Up next, I watched Infernal Affairs, a foreign movie, which was a trilogy, I believe, and The Departed was loosely based on this first movie, which, if you watch this movie, Infernal Affairs, it's basically watching The Departed. So, very similar to this movie, but a good watch. Recommend this one if you like The Departed. But Infernal Affairs, I gave 3 stars out of 5. Up next, on the 10th of May, I watched a comedy called This Is the End with Seth Rogen, James Franco, Jonah Hill, all these guys that we've seen in comedy movies throughout the years. And many of you have probably seen this movie. First time I've seen it. Very silly, but a good time. A good movie to just turn your brain off and give it a watch. But enjoyed it. Gave it 3 stars out of 5 for This Is the End. Up next, on the 12th, I watched a James Mangold directed movie called Copland, which I thought was really good. Had Stallone, had a great cast with Stallone, De Niro, Robert Patrick, Ray Liotta, Harvey Keitel. Thought it was a good movie, good little thriller, good crime drama, and I enjoyed it. But enjoyed it. Gave it 3.5 stars out of 5. Up next, Conan the Barbarian, a 1982 movie, I believe. Thought it was a good little fantasy movie, and gave it 3 stars out of 5. Watched a week from the 12th of watching the first Conan. I watched Conan the Destroyer on 19th of May, and along the same lines, a good little fantasy movie. Didn't love it, but I liked it, and gave it 3 stars out of 5. Up next, I watched on the 24th, It Follows, a movie, I think from 2014, with Micah Monroe, which I showed earlier with the villains release I have, but she stars in this movie, It Follows, and a good movie. I think Second Sight is putting out a 4K release of this movie. I liked it for the most part. Gave it a 3.5, or not 3, gave it 3 stars out of 5 for It Follows. Do recommend watching it though, it's very original. Alright, up next, on 25th of May, I watched Edge of Tomorrow, which I have a release of this And got this on Black Friday this past Christmas for $10, and a good movie. I like this. A good sci-fi movie with a little bit of like that Groundhog Day type feel where the day repeats. The other title of this movie being Live, Die, Repeat. And really thought this was a good original movie. Can get confusing at times if you don't pay attention. Great performances by Tom Cruise, Emily Blunt, Bill Paxton's in it as well. But recommend this movie if you haven't seen it. It came out nearly a decade ago, back in 2014, and I don't think enough people have seen this. And I recommend it. But really like this movie. Gave Edge of Tomorrow 4 stars out of 5. Up next, I watched a movie in the theaters called Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And not a movie I would always watch, more of like a family drama type movie. And usually I don't really gravitate toward a lot of those type of movies, but wanted to check it out. It's playing at a local theater of mine. I think it's based off of a book, but I thought it was a good movie, a good family movie if you want to watch with your kids, or if you have a family. A good movie to watch with your family, I think. Gave Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret a 3 stars out of 5. Almost done here. We got 2 more movies, and we'll wrap this up. On May the 30th, I watched Wolf Creek, which was an Australian movie from the early 2000s, I believe. Really enjoyed this movie. Watched it with my friend who bought the, I think the imprint release that came out recently, that lenticular cover. I'm sure you've seen it on YouTube, but which I won't be able to pick that up. I think it's sold out. But I loved it. Loved the character of, I think, Mick in my head, but just enjoyed his performance as a villain. Very ruthless, just a hard, cold-blooded killer. And if you like horror movies, if you like thriller movies, highly recommend this movie. So Wolf Creek, 4 stars I gave out of 5. And last but not least, on May the 31st, I watched the sequel to Wolf Creek 2, which came out several years later, and I enjoyed it. Not as good as the first one, but Mick, still a great villain. I think John Jarrett's the actor's name. I can't think of Mick's last name in the movie. I think Mick Taylor. I can't remember. I know it's Mick though, but enjoyed this movie. The other guy in this movie that played us kind of like the protagonist, thought he gave a great performance, and overall I really liked Wolf Creek 2. And I think they're making a 3rd one, but I think it's still in development, but I'm excited about that one. And I know they made a TV show as well too, which I'm going to check out. Not sure if I can watch that on streaming or what, or buy it on physical, but do want to check that out as well. I think it's got 2 seasons, and but yeah, really enjoyed the performance by the villain throughout this franchise. But Wolf Creek 2 gave 4 stars out of 5. All right. That was a lot, especially with being my first video on here. That was a lot. I enjoyed this, and I just wanted to share with you what I've watched throughout the last 5 months. And I'll put out probably a video of what I watched in June, but just wanted to show and share what I watched throughout the first 5 months of this year. And yeah, I'm Hagan K, and I look to post some videos here on YouTube. I'm gonna try to post some stuff and see if I can get better at doing this, just because I think it's neat, and I watch a lot of guys do this. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Take care.